Good evening, everybody. This is the regular board meeting of the St. Louis Park School Board. We want to welcome everybody here tonight. We will move ahead with this call to order. We will go through the approval of the agenda, open forum, the superintendent's report. We have several discussion items tonight, and we are going to change the order up just a little bit on those discussion items because we have people here tonight from Eilers who does our bonding, and they bring us much good news, which we want to share right off the bat with you. So in the order that we have printed, we have a referendum update, the 2013-2014 enrollment update, a policy update, first readings, St. Louis Park graduation rate update, and then the general obligation bond sale was our fifth item on the list, and we're going to ask for an amendment to the agenda to move that up in the order, so it'll be the first thing under our discussion items. Then that'll be followed by the consent agenda, the action agenda, communications and transmittals, and then adjournment. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Moved by Nancy, second? Second. Second by Larry. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 We have a 7-0 vote. Moving right along, is there anyone here tonight for open forum? And is the appropriate... Oh, we need the yellow sheet filled out? Tonight, we have Amy Burns speaking to us on behalf of Vote Yes. And would you state your name, please, and your address? And then you have 3 minutes, and that will be timed by Cynthia. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Burns. I'm at 3275 Zenwood Avenue South in St. Louis Park. And I just wanted to say hello and thank you to the board members and Superintendent Metz. I want to thank you for running an efficient school district that's academically challenging and offers such a wide variety of learning and activity options for our diverse population. Thank you for being fiscally responsible and developing that strategic vision for our preschool, the elementary, middle school, high school, community ed, and seniors. You have made us proud of our brand, and we love having our children attend schools that have a reputation of broad community support. I encourage all of you watching to continue that support by getting out to vote on Tuesday, November 5th. Or if you're going to be busy on the 5th, you can go to City Hall now and vote by absentee ballot. And we're asking you to please vote yes. Vote yes for technology, yes for our buildings, and yes for learning and continuing to let the district develop great education to all of our kids and our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. We appreciate that. Is there anyone else here to speak tonight in open forum? No one appearing. We'll move on with our agenda. Next is the superintendent's report.
Good evening, board members and community members. I wanted to take just a moment today, since I'm going to be speaking later in this meeting. I won't take much time now, but to give you a quick update on our fall athletics schedule. The students did very well here at the high school. Our boys soccer team was conference champions. Congratulations to the boys. They did a great job. The girls swim team, also conference champions. So congratulations to the girls swimmers. Boys cross country was the all-conference academic team champion. We have some very talented, intelligent boys cross country runners. And also the boys and girls cross country teams did very well. They finished near the very top of the conference. We have two individuals that I wanted to recognize. Luke Von Eschen, boys soccer honorable mention All-State, and Artis Kariskas, boys soccer second team All-State. So congratulations to the two of them, and congratulations to all of our fall sport participants.
Thank you, Superintendent Metz. At this time, we'll move on to our discussion items. With the amended agenda, we'll start with the item E, General Obligation Bond Sale Update, and I will introduce Carolyn Drude from Eilers, and Carolyn will make her presentation. Thank you.
Well, I feel very fortunate to be bringing all sorts of good news here tonight, and probably not quite as excited as you are, but I might come in second here. I'm going to talk about your bond rating with Moody's Investor Service, or from Moody's Investor Service. I'm going to start with that. That is a critical piece of information, and it's a critical step in issuing general obligation bonds, or probably any kind of bonds. But I just want to make sure that I talk about the fact that your bond rating, in conjunction with this refunding bond that you have recently accomplished, was raised from a AA3 to a AA2, and that's kind of working your way toward a AAA, which is the highest rating, as you may know. But the changes are always identified by why, what happened, why is there an increase. And so we can certainly talk about that, and the report that your board has, and that maybe some of you have, talked about some of the rationale that they took into consideration, basically saying that this AA2 upgrade reflects the district's large tax base with above average income levels, favorably located in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, multi-year operating surpluses. Now they're getting to the real nitty-gritty here, the things that you can perhaps have some control over. Multi-year operating surpluses which have increased fund balance levels and stabilized the district's financial position. Positive enrollment trends, existence of voter-approved excess operating levies, and average debt and pension burdens. These are the things that are specifically identified as strengths of your school district as Moody's takes a look at it. What you'll hear in there are things that you do have some control over as a board, and those are your reserves. And when someone says you have a bond rating, I'm sure that it's not your reserves that come to mind. It's something about a bond. But this is less about the bond itself than how you operate the school district, how you take care of the school district during a period of time when it might be difficult and you have other funds on hand, that sort of thing. So one of the things I wanted to mention that just came today at Ehlers, a special comment that Moody's Investor Service sent out about ratings in general, and it is dated October 28th, and the first sentence in this report says, there were 235 rating changes across public finance sectors in the third quarter of 2013. It included 182 downgrades. So I think it tells you that this is not just a an easy, an easy process. You don't just say, oh, you know, maybe we'll get an upgrade, and they look very, very carefully not only at your bonds, but how you run the school district, and as you can hear from what's said here, the fact that you have support of the community is an important factor. Before I go on to the refunding, I wonder if I could ask the board chairman to come forward. We think it's important to have something that you can hang on the wall that attests to this. So basically what we have is a recognition bond that basically says this bond is hereby given to the school board and administration of the St. Louis Park School District in recognition of Moody's Investor Service assignment of an upgrade to a AA2 credit rating for the district's 2013 A bonds. The AA2 rating results from Moody's recognition of the district's improved fund balance, healthy reserve levels, stable financial position, and growing enrollment. Moody's also cited a large tax base with above-average income indices and voter-approved excess operating and capital levies as strengths for the district. And we think it would be fun if you'd hang it in some important place.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'd just like to take 1 minute to thank everybody who's responsible for this. As the chair, I get to stand up here and say thank you. But there are 6 other people on our board sitting over here. There's our superintendent, Rob Metz. There's a staff over there. Even our friends from the Fourth Estate. Yeah, our friends who say nice things about us in the paper when we have really good things happen. To have those kinds of headlines that tells our community how well we're doing, we do appreciate that, Seth. Thank you very much. And for all the good things that are done by our principals, our teachers, and all of our students, we are very grateful for this. Thank you, Carolyn.
So now I'd like to talk about your sale report. And I'm sure, as you all know, there was a refunding that was done recently that saved money for the school district. It was, I thought, brilliant of the way you timed it. It was very clever of you. And the sale of general obligation school building refunding bonds was done recently. I know that you have probably heard the results, but basically part of the process was the Moody's rating, which was very helpful. And what happens when you get an upgrade is it tells the underwriters that this is and other people who are going to buy bonds, that this is a strong community, going to pay their money back, highly rated. And you received interest rates that ranged from the new bonds from about 2% to 5%. The interest rate on the existing bonds was 4.375 to 5%. The important thing here is that the savings exceeded the estimates that were made earlier when you decided to go forward. And I know you have a copy of this report. The savings were estimated to be about $1.7 million. Your savings was in excess of that. About $370,000 a year from 2014 through 2019. And this has been already approved by the board. And is a reality. This is not an estimate at this time. It's some actual numbers. For those of you who have a copy of the report, you'll see that you had 10 bidders on the bonds that were sold. That is really a lot of bids and is indicative of everything that your bond rating stands for. And the fact that you have bids not only from Minnesota, but from Chicago, New York, Dallas, Milwaukee, Philadelphia. There was interest all around the country on the bonds having to do with the strength of your bond issue. This, as I mentioned, the savings is about $370,000 a year, which means a direct reduction in your tax levy for debt service, which is your principal and interest payments on your bonds. I also brought a couple of pages that might be of interest that were handed out, I believe. One that summarizes the bond refundings that you have done and saved money in the past 4 bond issues that were done for that purpose, and they total $5,673,000 in total. And this is a total reduction in future debt service payments resulting from this refunding. Now, this is the total, not the, and it's not going to be $5 million a year. But that is an important thing, that you have looked carefully at the markets, made a decision as to when it is you thought would be a good time to go ahead, and it has obviously worked for you. The other handout has to do with the 3 questions that you're putting before the public, as I understand it. And that's something that I can just mention is available. It talks about estimated market values of typical properties, what kind of increase there would be for each of the 3. And it totals them, and it talks about how much that money, that dollar amount, will be reduced because of this refunding, because it will happen in 2014. Don't know if you want more information than that, but it's available for anybody that is interested, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I don't have a question as much as a comment, and or a few of them actually. And first, I want to thank Ehlers for all the help that you've given us on this. You know, over my time on the board, we've gone out to the community for a few different bonds, and they've supported us, and I'm so grateful to the community for having done that. And I just want the community to know that we always kind of keep our eye on what does that mean, and can we, in a homeowner language, we would say it was a refi. We refinanced our bonds, but in the bonding world, it's a refunding, I think that's what it's called. But the effect of it is that we reduce the interest rate, it's going to cost us less, and that gets passed on to our taxpayers, so we reduce the cost of the prior bonds we've had based on the good work that Ehlers has done for us, so thank you.
Well, I feel really fortunate to be able to come and give all this news and make it sound like I had something to do with it. Thank you very much for...
Carolyn, before you go, could you speak directly on the average amount that is reduced on a typical home in St. Louis Park?
Well, one of the handouts that the board has, let's say a $200,000 residential homestead. It shows here that the capital projects levy increase would be about $15, that the bond issue would be about $18 on that property, and the referendum increase about $49, the total being $82 for all 3. And of that, $15 will be reduced based on all the information that is available right now.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Carolyn?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.
And that turns out to be, $5, a little under $5.60 a month.
Jim, to see a lawyer with a calculator, that's good. At this time, we'll return to our agenda, and this will be the referendum update. Our communications manager, Sarah, will address it, along with Sandy Salen, our business manager.
Thank you, Chair Richardson. As we get ready for Election Day, we thought it best to give everybody one more dose of Referendum 101, all the things we're asking for. As Carolyn said, we've got some really good news tonight in terms of the money, so we wanted to share the rest of the package with you. So I'm going to start with an overview and then turn it over to Sandy to talk numbers. As you know, we have 3 questions on the ballot. Technology levy is the first question, bond for buildings or bond referendum, and levy for learning, which is our operating levy. And you can see there, we've talked about these before, but I'll run you through the numbers one more time in case you haven't been following along. Follow the bouncing ball a little bit here. Technology levy is $1.75 million annually, and that's for 10 years. It's important to look at both of those numbers because they change a little bit based on the question. Bond referendum is $14.9 million over 9 years. And the levy for learning, or the operating levy referendum, is $1.1 million for 10 years. So you got to remember those numbers as you go back and forth. Digging a little deeper into the questions, technology levy, important note for the voters at home, when you get to the polls and you're looking at the ballot, it's not going to say technology levy. According to the ballot language, it has to say capital projects levy. So when you see that on the ballot in front of you, immediately go to, okay, that's technology. Think about it as technology. And this is a revoke. We're revoking 1 year early, and we're renewing it. And the reason we're revoking 1 year early is so that it's a seamless transition. That's why we're doing that. And really, this is at the core of our learning and our academics in terms of keeping our technology current, being able to maintain the technology, as well as to have the staffing to train on the technology. So this is about continuing our initiatives. The bond for buildings is $4.9 million approximately, and this is really broken into 2 chunks. You've got the $4.9 million, and that's the building additions, and you have the additional $10 million, and that's deferred maintenance. And so that's touching every school, every center in the district. And so combined, they're 14.9. And as a board, if you go way back in time to last summer, July, August, you had decided that this should be 1 question. So we have 1 bond referendum question, $14.9 million. And then the third question that will be out there is the operating levy. And this is for general school operations, class size, educational programming. This is the one question that truly touches the classroom and instruction. And really this one is all about maintaining the academic quality, the competitive advantage, kind of everything St. Louis Park Schools is known for is all about question number 3. And with that, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty numbers, and that is always my cue to turn it over to our Director of Finance, Sandy Salen.
We always say she is the words, I'm the numbers.
It's just better that way.
And Carolyn went through this briefly with you just a little while ago, but just as a reiteration, the tax impact and what we've been using for the tax impact is the average home within St. Louis Park at being $200,000. And what this tax impact would mean for that $200,000 home would be an $82 annual increase, which equates to approximately $6.84 a month. And we do have a tax calculator available on our website. Yes?
Oops, Sandy, is that the impact for all 3 questions combined?
All 3 questions combined.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it excludes, of course, the $15 decrease for the refunding. So that would be on top of that. Yep. Come off of it, yes. And we do have a tax calculator available on our website you can just plug in your value of your home if you want to know what that tax impact is going to be on your particular property. And Carolyn went through the specifics already with the bond refunding. I don't know how much more I can say about it. She did a fantastic job. But we're refinancing our 2005 bond issue at a lower interest rate. And with the Moody's upgrade, as she stated, it brought us to a great reduction in our property taxes. It's approximately a little over $370,000 for taxes payable in 2014 decrease, and approximately $2.2 million over the 6 years. And I think this is something that I want to highlight on top of that is there's only 11 districts in Minnesota with a higher rate and only 16 with an equivalent credit rating in Minnesota to ours.
We should say that's out of, I think, 333 districts.
Yep.
So that's pretty good.
And there's always question and answers that we put out there for some questions that come our way from time to time throughout this process. And one has always been the reopening of Cedar Manor. As we know, a few years back, we closed Cedar Manor, one of our elementary schools, since we weren't filling up the buildings and utilizing the buildings to the extent that we should be. But what we are currently doing is we're currently leasing it to other educational entities, which is generating some income for us, approximately $200,000, which we can put into our operating capital. And the operating capital can be used for things such as deferred maintenance, the use of maintaining our buildings, as well as there is an option with the commissioner approval to transfer to operating capital. So there's a wide variety of reasons we can use the operating capital funds for. But part of the reason why we decided to close Cedar Manor was it cost us $500,000 to $700,000 annual in operations cost, which is coming off of our fund balance every year. Currently, this savings has helped us to get to where we are today with our fund balance. So if we reopened Cedar Manor, we would be losing that funding source every year annually.
Sandy? How long are the leases that we have currently with those? Or
we've been going like on a 2-year cycle, and we just renewed them. And the other question always is why do we need an operating levy? And this levy is what we use to support our operations, our regular operations of our schools, such as what hits the classrooms. And, state funding hasn't kept in place with the inflation. We've been receiving less than 1.5 in some years, but in the this year and next year, we're going to be receiving 1.5% from the state for our general education formula allowance increase. But when looking at our cost increases annually, it can be anywhere from 2% to 2.5%, or it could possibly be more, dependent on where that inflationary factor goes. And what this is doing is creating a problem to keep our fund balance in line with the expenditures in line with our revenues. And this current fiscal year, our budgets are actually out of balance, where our expenditures exceed our revenues by about $1.1 million, which was a conscious effort on our part to use fund balance to maintain the programs and expenses that we already have. So this legislative change now allows us to use some of that local control to be able to bring that fund balance more in line with where we need it to be, and hence the reason why we're going out for this operating referendum. And with that, there's going to be a lot of discussions, what we call our growth plan. We have noticed that our enrollment has increased over these last few years and continues to get to that increased level, and we're going to be doing some long-range facilities plan discussions besides what we already did to determine what is that long-term effect that it's going to have, is particularly on the middle school and the high school. And Cedar Manor is always there. to be able to maybe help to accommodate that plan. So that's always going to be a building that's going to be available to see what we can do to create that long-range facility plan in the future. And the question always is, what happens if, yes?
I guess I was just going to add, it gives us flexibility. I mean, it may not always be there in terms of like with Elliott, but it was kind of the same process we had with Elliott. That was a asset that we've really utilized and are in the process of attempting to sell, but when there was enough deferred maintenance to not make it worthwhile anymore. But that has been our plan with Cedar Manors, to continue to have it fully leased and available flexibility, because once you sell it, it's hard to get more land. So.
Okay. And the question always remains is, if the referendum fails, what will we be or have to do to help to maintain our programs? If the technology levy and operating levy fail, there is going to most likely be some downfall because of that to what we need to do to help to maintain our fund balance. We'll probably have to look at class size increases in programs in order to do so, because there is a limited ability that we can use to maintain our expenditures to meet our revenues. So there will be some discussions that would have to take place. I did a projection model that I just shared to the board just a little while ago that shows the impact of what it would do to our fund balance if we did not get this referendum. If the bond referendum fails, we do have to take a look at our space issues. We are currently in an overcrowded position in our elementary schools, as we did the study this last year on our elementary facility study. And if we do not get the bond referendum, we would have to take a look at how do we correct the space issues within our elementary buildings, as well as how we're going to have those discussions for the future regarding all of our buildings for the future growth.
Yeah, Sandy, that overcrowding is based. It's not enough to fill Cedar Manor. It's a couple of classrooms, and it's the addition of K-12 that's coming down the road. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thanks, guys. All-day kindergarten. That's what I meant to say.
And I think this is Sarah. It's the last one.
And for those of you who are wondering exactly where do I vote and how does this work, it's as simple as going to the Secretary of State website. They have a fantastic tool called the Poll Finder. You type in your street address, your house address, and it directs you right to the polls, so you know exactly where to vote on Election Day. Important note, we do have one combined polling place for this election. Susan Lindgren Elementary School will be serving Edina Precinct 4 as well as St. Louis Park Precinct 7. So that's the only piece of the actual polling places that's different. Otherwise, it's your traditional city polling place. All is true in St. Louis Park, Minnetonka, and Hopkins. So that's important. And then one other piece that I want to draw everybody's attention to, landing in your mailbox either this weekend or even today, depending on your letter carrier, is the latest piece of referendum material from the school district. This is the nuts, the bolts, and everything in between that tells you all about the referendum. So one-stop shopping to give it a read before Election Day to know exactly what the questions are asking for and why they're important to our school district. So with that, any questions from the board for either myself or Sandy?
I think we have it covered.
All right,
We
thank
really
you.
appreciate that. Thank you both. Next item on the agenda is our enrollment update. Superintendent Metz will present this information.
Good evening, board members and community members at home. I'm going to put a couple of charts up for you to look at that speak to our enrollment. They're going to be challenging to read. Board members have them in their packets so you can follow along, and if you're following along at home, I'll explain them so you'll get the idea of what I have up here that's going to be very difficult for you to read, but you can see the trends. I'm here to give a quick update on our enrollment. And the first thing I'd like to say is that our enrollments have been climbing slowly. If you look at the chart that is being shown right now, on the left side is the enrollments at the beginning of the school year, and on the right side are the enrollments at the end of the school year. You can see that we do lose some students throughout the course of the year. That is very normal for school districts. But you can see if you look on the left side, that's the starting enrollment, that it's steadily been ticking up a little bit each year. And it started 5 years ago or 6 years ago, if you're reading that from home, it's about 4,200 students. And this fall we were at about 4,500 students. So it's not exceptionally quick or fast growth, but it's slow and steady growth. And you can also see that in general we've been maintaining approximately the same number of students each year. So both at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, our enrollment is slightly rising. The next sheet that I'm showing here talks about enrollment by building and by grade. And this is the interesting one to me. I want to throw out a few of the highlights that I noticed, and then I'd be happy to answer questions from the board. First of all, as I said, the numbers are ticking up slightly. The school that is the most interesting to me is Aquila. If you look at the Aquila sections, there is third grade at Aquila is averaging 31.3 students per class. That is the only class in our whole elementary system that is above 30 students. And I think that is outstanding to have this many elementary classes and have only one above 30. It's really pretty amazing. And I know this fall when I was talking to the Aquila principal, Clarence Pollock, about what to do about this class, we were ready to add another teacher to third grade to lower that class size, but there really wasn't a room available at Aquila. If there was a room available, we would have hired another teacher and lowered that class size. But Aquila's pretty crowded, and so we weren't able to do that. But I think whenever we have this many classes in 4 different schools, elementary schools that is, and you only have one section that's above 30 students, that's pretty good. The other thing to notice about Aquila is that it's growing slightly. The first grade, kindergarten at Aquila has 5 sections, and first grade has 5 sections. That is a little bit new. Most of our elementary schools start with 4 sections in kindergarten, first, and second grade. And then in third, fourth, and fifth, they go to 3 sections because a little bit larger class size is acceptable in third, fourth, and fifth. Aquila looks like it's going to be our first school that might start with 5 sections in K1 and 2, and then go to 4 sections in third, fourth, and fifth. We have not had that for a while. So the potential growth at Aquila is definitely there. The other bump that I see is first grade at Susan Lindgren. First grade at Susan Lindgren has 5 sections, where traditionally at Susan Lindgren we'd have 4 in kindergarten, first, and second grade. So that's a little bit of an anomaly. Lots of first graders over at Susan Lindgren. So Aquila has a little bubble, and Susan Lindgren has a little bit of a bubble in first grade.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure.
In your professional opinion, okay, I'm wondering if Aquila will somehow level off. My point being is, for the last couple of years, we've been offering full year kindergarten, and that continues on. So people choose to move into that area, possibly. If we get full year or full day kindergarten for the rest of the schools in the future, you think some of those choice people will start moving to other locations to get still in St. Louis Park, but have full day kindergarten, and then that bubble will just stay there and move on through the school?
Yes, that's a good question. I don't know that. The next bullet I was going to speak about was all-day kindergarten. We've been doing some prognosticating about will our kindergarten numbers rise when we begin offering all-day kindergarten in every school? And don't know the answer to that, but it's a possibility. They certainly won't go down because we're offering all-day kindergarten in every school. I have a feeling they're going to bump up a little bit. So I'm very interested in that. And then where do the kindergartners end up, which is your question. Also, I'm very interested in that. Open enrollment. We accept open enrollment students every year. And the way we've done this in St. Louis Park is once the students are here, they're not considered open enrollment anymore. They're ours. The first year, though, we allow in open enrollment students when it fits well with our needs. And if you look at the elementary list here, Peter Hobart was the school that had space this fall. Susan Lindgren was full from July 1st on. We really didn't accept any open enrollment students at Susan Lindgren. That building was full. Aquila was almost full from July 1st on. There were a couple of grades that we were allowing open enrollment into Aquila, but not very many. Peter Hobart did have space. So we allowed in this year, I'll read the numbers for you. For new open enrollment, first time in the district, 6 open enrollment students to Park Spanish Immersion, 2 to Susan Lindgren, 26 to Peter Hobart, and 4 to Aquila. So I'm sharing that just as an example that we can use open enrollment to balance our numbers. And if our classes are full and our schools are full, like they were this year at Aquila and Susan Lindgren, we didn't accept open enrollment there. We did at Peter Hobart because we had space. So that's how we're using open enrollment in the elementary system. At the middle school this year, we let in 20.
Rob?
Yes, Jim.
Just an observation about that. Other than Peter Hobart, we had 26. I mean, the fact is, most of the kids that are filling our buildings are St. Louis Park kids. And when we're talking about adding classrooms or whatever, I mean, it's not because we're trying to gain kids from outside, but we're really what this shows too is that most of our students are St. Louis Park kids.
Yes, we have 4,500 students right now. So 120 that we let in new this year that didn't live in St. Louis Park is a pretty small fraction of 4,500. And we did that because there were spaces in certain classrooms in certain buildings. That's a good point. The middle school, we allowed in 24 new students, and the senior high, 58 new students. The senior high has typically done that. That's a very long tradition here, that beginning between 8th grade and 9th grade, students tend to school shop, and families tend to school shop for a good high school experience. And we've been very successful at attracting high school students to begin here in 9th grade. So a quick update from me on enrollment, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have regarding enrollment.
Thank you for putting this on out. There's been a lot of questions this last week, actually, on open enrollment, and this helps a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, the good news for us is our enrollment is very solid. And the worst thing that can happen to a school district is if students start leaving. And in our case, that's not the case. They're coming here, and that allows us to have control over our own destiny, so to speak, and decide how to best regulate our enrollment over time. And that's a healthy position to be in. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. We appreciate that, and it is great to see the district continue to grow. There was some trepidation a few years ago. We stepped back from it. We didn't want to do a whole lot of changes. We wanted to be very careful to make sure the growth was real. It is, and we're very grateful. And that is one of the reasons that our bond, the improvement in our rating happened because of that growth. And it's very, very important that we keep it and we keep it stable. And we have shown that over the past few years. Julie?
I'm sorry I didn't say this earlier, but just the one thing I did note on the grade sizes at a
Look on the left side, that's the starting enrollment, that it's steadily been ticking up a little bit each year. And it started 5 years ago or 6 years ago, if you're reading that from home. It's about 4,200 students. And this fall, we were at about 4,500 students. So it's not exceptionally quick or fast growth, but it's slow and steady growth. And you can also see that in general, we've been maintaining approximately the same number of students each year. So both at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, our enrollment is slightly rising. The next sheet that I'm showing here talks about enrollment by building and by grade. And this is the interesting one to me. I want to throw out a few of the highlights that I noticed, and then I'd be happy to answer questions from the board. First of all, as I said, the numbers are ticking up slightly. The school that is the most interesting to me is Aquila. If you look at the Aquila sections, there is third grade at Aquila is averaging 31.3 students per class. That is the only class in our whole elementary system that is above 30 students. And I think that is outstanding to have this many elementary classes and have only one above 30. It's really pretty amazing. And I know this fall when I was talking to the Aquila principal, Clarence Pollock, about what to do about this class, we were ready to add another teacher to third grade to lower that class size, but there really wasn't a room available at Aquila. If there was a room available, we would have hired another teacher and lowered that class size. But Aquila's pretty crowded, and so we weren't able to do that. But I think whenever we have this many classes in 4 different schools, elementary schools that is, and you only have one section that's above 30 students, that's pretty good. The other thing to notice about Aquila is that it's growing slightly. The first grade, kindergarten at Aquila has 5 sections, and first grade has 5 sections. That is a little bit new. Most of our elementary schools start with 4 sections in kindergarten, first, and second grade. And then in third, fourth, and fifth, they go to 3 sections because a little bit larger class size is acceptable in third, fourth, and fifth. Aquila looks like it's going to be our first school that might start with 5 sections in K1 and 2, and then go to 4 sections in third, fourth, and fifth. We have not had that for a while. So the potential growth at Aquila is definitely there. The other bump that I see is first grade at Susan Lindgren. First grade at Susan Lindgren has 5 sections, where traditionally at Susan Lindgren we'd have 4 in kindergarten, first, and second grade. So that's a little bit of an anomaly. Lots of first graders over at Susan Lindgren. So Aquila has a little bubble, and Susan Lindgren has a little bit of a bubble in first grade.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure.
In your professional opinion, okay, I'm wondering if Aquila will somehow level off. My point being is, for the last couple of years, we've been offering full-year kindergarten, and that continues on. So people choose to move into that area, possibly. If we get full year or full day kindergarten for the rest of the schools in the future, you think some of those choice people will start moving to other locations to get still in St. Louis Park, but have full day kindergarten, and then that bubble will just stay there and move on through the school?
Yes, that's a good question. I don't know that. The next bullet I was going to speak about was all-day kindergarten. We've been doing some prognosticating about will our kindergarten numbers rise when we begin offering all-day kindergarten in every school? And don't know the answer to that, but it's a possibility. They certainly won't go down because we're offering all-day kindergarten in every school. I have a feeling they're going to bump up a little bit. So I'm very interested in that. And then where do the kindergartners end up, which is your question. Also, I'm very interested in that. Open enrollment. We accept open enrollment students every year. And the way we've done this in St. Louis Park is once the students are here, they're not considered open enrollment anymore. They're ours. The first year, though, we allow in open enrollment students when it fits well with our needs. And if you look at the elementary list here, Peter Hobart was the school that had space this fall. Susan Lingren was full from July 1st on. We really didn't accept any open enrollment students at Susan Lingren. That building was full. Aquila was almost full from July 1st on. There were a couple of grades that we were allowing open enrollment into Aquila, but not very many. Peter Hobart did have space. So we allowed in this year, I'll read the numbers for you. For new open enrollment, first time in the district, 6 open enrollment students to Park Spanish Immersion, 2 to Susan Lingren, 26 to Peter Hobart, and 4 to Aquila. So I'm sharing that just as an example that we can use open enrollment to balance our numbers. And if our classes are full and our schools are full, like they were this year at Aquila and Susan Lingren, we didn't accept open enrollment there. We did at Peter Hobart because we had space. So that's how we're using open enrollment in the elementary system. At the middle school this year, we let in 20.
Rob,
yes, Jim.
Just an observation about that. Other than Peter Hobart, we had 26. I mean, the fact is, most of the kids that are filling our buildings are St. Louis Park kids. And when we're talking about adding classrooms or whatever, I mean, it's not because we're trying to gain kids from outside, but we're really, what this shows too is that most of our students are St. Louis Park kids.
Yes, we have 4,500 students right now. So 120 that we let in new this year that didn't live in St. Louis Park is a pretty small fraction of 4,500. And we did that because there were spaces in certain classrooms in certain buildings. That's a good point. The middle school, we allowed in 24 new students, and the senior high, 58 new students. The senior high has typically done that. That's a very long tradition here, that beginning between 8th grade and 9th grade, students tend to school shop, and families tend to school shop for a good high school experience. And we've been very successful at attracting high school students to begin here in 9th grade. So a quick update from me on enrollment, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have regarding enrollment.
Thank you for putting this on out. There's been a lot of questions this last week, actually, on open enrollment, and this helps a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, the good news for us is our enrollment is very solid. And the worst thing that can happen to a school district is if students start leaving. And in our case, that's not the case. They're coming here, and that allows us to have control over our own destiny, so to speak, and decide how to best regulate our enrollment over time. And that's a healthy position to be in. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. We appreciate that, and it is great to see the district continue to grow. There was some trepidation a few years ago. We stepped back from it. We didn't want to do a whole lot of changes. We wanted to be very careful to make sure the growth was real. It is, and we're very grateful. And that is one of the reasons that our bond, the improvement in our rating happened because of that growth. And it's very, very important that we keep it and we keep it stable. And we have shown that over the past few years. Julie?
I'm sorry I didn't say this earlier, but just wanted, the one thing I did noted on the grade sizes at a
having less than 40 students, so uncalculated. Whoops.
A question.
Yes.
Just a clarification. So some black students could also be in the category of free and reduced?
Correct.
And some white students could also be in that category?
Correct.
Okay.
And they could also be in the EL.
Okay.
And special ed. So why such good success at St. Louis Park High School? We have a lot of fantastic things happening at the high school. First off, we have our 9th grade bar program, which is a pure focus on failure rates. And we firmly believe, as does the research, that when you have students who pass their classes, you have students who graduate in 4 years. We had the addition of the program College Possible that takes students who are not representative in colleges and universities and who have the possibility of going to college, and works with them on ACT scores and mentors them academically. We have our career pathway program that we started with articulated classes at the colleges, and we have our advisory lessons once a month that focus on college and career readiness. We have our non-traditional academy, which is the 12th grade program that it works with seniors who maybe need an alternative pathway in their senior year to get their credits done. It's peer taught, or it's team taught. We have our High Achievement Program, our HAP program, with mentorships to students of color. And then our counselor work, our teacher attitudes, our school attitude, and there's one thing that's not on there, but our community and our family support and attitude. Those are the driving forces behind why our students are so successful, because we have such a strong community within the school and outside of the school.
Joanne, if I could interrupt for just 1 second. When we talk about our 9th grade BAR program, that's not BAR, that's BARR, and that's building assets, reducing risks for those out in television land, because it's one of our most successful programs. It's now nationally known and being copied all over the country, and we're awfully proud of that, and you guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. So the work is still continuing, though. We never can just be satisfied with where we are. We're shooting for that 90% or higher as well. So at St. Louis Park High School, we are working on several things. We're investigating and having discussions in various areas, and I wanted to just present those to you now of generally where we are, and when we get more specific, and if they were become adopted, then we'll talk to you more in depth later on. But first off, we're having discussions at the high school level about our grading practices, about giving zeros, about percentage, 100% rates, and looking at how we grade our students and what we grade our students on for using formative assessments versus summative assessments. And we're also looking at homework practices. Are we grading on compliance, or are we grading because they understand the standards? We are looking at the possibility of flipping classes. What that means is that there's a small snippet of instruction seen at home on a computer or on an iPad, and then they come back and they get that one-on-one experience with their teacher. We have modified our professional learning community, where we are really focusing in on support for the teachers and then giving them an opportunity to try something and then bringing the data back the following time and discussing what's working and what's not working. We are investigating the AVID program, which stands for Achievement Via Individual Determination. It's another program that's to encourage students of color and underrepresented in the universities, and it gives them support, it gives them the class, and it encourages to take IB and AP courses. We have been in discussions with Normandale about early college, articulated courses, concurrent enrollment in college in the schools, and we are looking at how to expand that I-3 grant that we have, this BAR, the Building Assets Reducing Risk program, and the NTA, the Non-Traditional Academy. We're looking at what we can implement at 10th and 11th grade. And the question is, how do we know it's working? The things that we have already implemented, if you go back to some data, we now have the National Student Clearinghouse, which is fairly new to us, where we can look and see how our students do beyond graduation. When they go to college, how many enroll in college, how many stay in college. So if you look at our 2003 numbers, we had 70% of our students who graduated attend a post-secondary opportunity. 95% of those students returned for their sophomore year. Those are pretty astounding numbers. In 2011, they're even a little bit further behind than the state on their graduation rate. So we had scores from 2011. Our 2011 graduates, 81% of them went to a post-secondary facility. And the numbers just came out, and we don't have the current to see who came back their sophomore year. But if we can look at our trends, I would assume that that would go up as well. Hoping. So the graduation rates have changed, but yet we're doing pretty well here at St. Louis Park High School.
With the new graduation rate standards, are we able to go back and see how we would have done with the new standards? Excluding the part of when someone transfers to another school or not. But just the parts of from 9th grade and how they did. You know what I mean?
There is a report for us to pull if a student left us at 10th grade. And I know we're working with 287, that they have new programs that they're putting in place to help support us with that as well, to help us try to track down these students and find, a lot of times when, in my experience, it's either error or we just didn't know that they transferred somewhere, but they really did. And so it's going back and tracking them down. So we can get specific names, but we have to go back for all 4 years, and that's something new for us that we're just starting to implement.
So that's something you may look at to see how our graduation rates would have been with the new standards?
Oh, are you asking, I guess I'm not sure on what you're asking, to look at the old way that they used to configure, just looking at 12th grade?
Look at the new way that they're configuring the graduation rates, but prorated to 2012, 2010, 2011. Just to see what we would have done.
Yeah, we only have the 2011 and 2012 numbers, so we have their baseline. 2011, they were still reporting on all of our report cards just the senior year's graduation rate, so we were in the 90%, when really we were at what that chart showed at the 50, at the lower number. Yeah, so that is the first time. We have not looked into going back further than that. I don't know if all of the systems will allow us to go back that far, if we can track the 9th and 10th and 11th graders.
Joanne, I have a couple comments. You alluded to it, but District 287 is doing some really good work, and Nancy probably knows this, that they have a program called Diploma On, which, as you were describing, looks for students that didn't graduate. They were dropouts or they were unknowns. And we can give them names, and our counselors have done that, and they send out social workers to literally find these students and find out where they are and what happened to them, and if they can locate them, get them into a program so that they can get their diploma. So it's exciting for me to see that too at District 287. They're helping us quite a bit.
Julie?
Following up on the calculation of it, I think it's easy, if I were an audience member, I'd say, well, why aren't you aiming for 100%? And I think, in fact, we would never be at 100% because of the continuing category. We have students in special education, some students who are in transition programs. We are officially authorized, and we do, in fact, provide special programs, right, for students who might be continuing till 21.
Yes. Yes, students are allowed to attend school through EL and through our special ed programs up until they're 21 years of age to complete their diploma. So it's tough to do just a 4-year and say we're going to end up at 100%. That's why the state is looking at 90% too.
Yeah, and there's always, in the 4 years of a student's life, things happen, and there can be traumas in a student's life, or unfortunately, occasionally, these are still children growing to be young adults, but sometimes, occasionally, they do stupid things. More often, it's a trauma of life that happens to them that I think we should get more credit for. I mean, it's a good thing we've got some kids continuing, as you were describing it a few minutes ago, or maybe Rob, but anyways, the students who are still taking classes, we're going out and finding, at least I hope we are, but what you were describing with 287, and doing what we can to make sure that they get a high school degree, and I certainly would support any efforts in that. Yeah, that's all for now.
Joanne, this is just one of the most exciting reports and this exciting facts that I think I've heard in all my time on the school board. I mean, this is really great news. The trend line is great, the programs you've implemented, the fact that they're working. You know, we hear a lot about public education, but I always say what happens after you leave us is, from my point of view, the real measure, and the real measure is kids are graduating in great numbers and even better numbers going on to post-secondary efforts and staying. And I hope that we continue to improve that. The second thing I want to say is I'm our liaison to the 287 board, and District 287 does a lot of good things for students that have challenges in traditional public schools for a variety of reasons. But one of the things that superintendent is doing is spearheading a regional plan for Hennepin County, trying to raise the graduation rate across Hennepin County. And ours is so good that we could be kind of a leader there. And our ninth grade program is kind of an unknown gem in our community. It may be known throughout the country more and more, but I think Rob has had some conversations with the superintendent there, and they're starting to look at that and maybe get that some notice regionally. But one of the things they do talk about is suspensions of kids. Sometimes, in addition to the failure rate that I think is probably key, when we suspend kids and throw them out of school, that can be, for some kids, a real detriment to their getting back and getting on board. So, I've heard before, and I'm happy to hear that if we can work with kids and do the in-school suspensions or other ways to keep kids with us, I think that would help. And the third thing is, on the flipped classroom, I always want to raise this concern about kids who may not have that internet access that we all assume is so easy. And so I know that you're probably aware of that. I just want to echo that as a school board member, to just keep that high on the list so that that kind of flipped classroom is fair to everybody.
It's always the first thing as part of the discussion.
Julie?
Just one more comment. I didn't want to do two in a row. It's just that earlier. Yeah, well, you did three, so then I figured, okay. I really think this graduation rate is great news, and we should be very proud of that and proud of the progress. And I look forward to it hitting 90% for all of our groups in the near future, because if you don't graduate from high school, you have a pretty hard time going anywhere. But I always want us to keep our eyes on the prize, our proficiency rates. Graduating, I do think my day job is about getting kids ready for some form of post-secondary education, whether it's 2 or 4 year colleges or a technical program. And some of those technical programs are harder and sometimes more profitable in the jobs they turn out than some of the 2 and 4 year programs. So, we got to include all of those. And high school graduation isn't enough in many cases. That doesn't mean that they've met the requirements or have the skills. So we really have to keep our eye on moving our proficiency rates up and providing the information that we are doing in some of our the college advisory lessons you're talking about, so that students graduate with a choice to determine their future, and that we haven't predetermined that for us. And I know we're working on that. I just don't want to dampen this discussion. I just want to say, and we do this, and we need to do those other things.
And it doesn't dampen it, it just reinforces why we've now brought college into the schools, while we have articulated courses in our CTE program, our career and technical education programs, to open up the eyes of all of our students to the different pathways that they can choose, and to just give them some experience in other facets than English, math, social studies. As important as they are, it's also important to show them what else is out there that they can do.
I just want to thank you, Joanne, and the word you just used was pathways. And I happen to be reviewing, before the board meeting, I try to look at our mission, and that mission says we will have multiple pathways to excellence, and that is exactly what you're doing. The other observation I have is on, when you look at our graduation rate, especially among our black students, what we see is that gap being closed. And that's terribly important. It's powerful in this community, and we're very grateful for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. It is recommended that the board approve the consent agenda as presented. Have a motion to that effect, please. Joe moved it. Second? Second. Second by Ken. Thank you. Any discussion items? I have one, simply because we have a retirement. Lee Abrahamson social worker at the high school, is retiring after 32 years of service. Thank you, Lee, for all of your service.
And Bruce, I shouldn't be interrupting, but a quick Lee Abrahamson story.
Okay. Oh,
Like the
good.
Because as you know, I was the high school principal for a while, and before that, Mr. Laney was the high school principal. And when we were interviewing for a new high school principal just last summer, Lee reminded me that she was on the interview committee that hired Mr. Laney. So she has been here for a while.
The longevity and the retention in this district is something to really be proud of. And so thank you to the staff, thank you to our superintendent, all of our principals. We do have a great group, a great core group of people here, and we're very proud of that too. We have the motion on the floor. All those in favor, any further discussion? Sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We have a 7-0 vote. Next item on the agenda is the action agenda. It's for the approvals of the policies of the second reading. It is recommended that the school board approve the policy listed below for a second reading. This is policy number 208, development, adoption, and implementation of policies. And I would entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Moved by Nancy, second?
Second.
Second by Julie, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, none appearing, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We have a 7-0 vote. Thank you all. Next item on the agenda is communications and transmittals. Nancy?
Yeah, I will start. Not that I'm just a little chatty this meeting, I guess, but November 5th is an election day, and I was out with my brother and his partner who live in the St. Louis Park, and they were talking about going on vacation on the 31st, and I said, go vote, absentee ballot, please go vote before you go on vacation. So if anybody's not planning to be around on November 5th, please go vote. Your vote is very important. We have a school board, several school board members up for election and several candidates up for election for the school board, I should say. So that's important that those folks did a great job. I'm not running, so I can say this. I watched the forum, and they did a great job at the forum. So if you haven't seen it, it's running on cable, and you can learn all about them and make your decisions. Paul Wellstone, the celebration and perhaps the grief over his passing happened not too long ago. He died on October 25th, 2002, and he was one of my inspirations to not only run for the school board but stay, because he was so committed to education. And one of his many quotes is, education and democracy have the same goal, the fullest possible development of human capabilities. Part of that is happening on Election Day on November 5th. So whatever your persuasion, please go and please vote.
Anyone else? Okay, I have one more thing. The theater group. Why do I do this all the time? I love our theater group. They are so exciting. They are doing Once Upon a Mattress, and it will be held, it's a musical. It will be held on the weekends of November 15th to the 17th and November 22nd to the 24th. And we will have school board meetings before it takes place, so I will be up here again pushing that. But if you want to see some very, very talented students, I recommend that you go see it. It is not just the kids you see on stage. I was down there tonight just before the school board meeting, and they were cutting costumes out on the floor. The crew, the costumes, the lighting, the sound, it's incredible the training these kids get, and then they go on. We have students from St. Louis Park at the Guthrie today, and we're awfully proud of all of our kids, but this theater group does a wonderful job, so I highly recommend it. It's called Once Upon a Mattress. It's the senior high musical, and it will be done November 15th through the 17th and November 22nd to the 24th. Hope to see you all there.
And I should just say, that's a delightful, funny musical, an old Carol Burnett one, if you ever saw the early version.
It always brings back memories. At this time, we will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Ken, second? Second by Larry. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We have a 7-0 vote, and we are adjourned. Thank you all.